Welcome to Compasscope. Our research platform covers over 1,100 public companies. Each week, we share one of our active research files here in dialogue format.
So you probably know how much you spend at the vet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the sticker shock of a routine checkup or an unexpected emergency is something most pet owners just know all too well.
Oh, absolutely. It's painful.
Yeah. But if you look past the waiting room, there is this massive multi-billion-dollar economic engine operating right behind those treatments.
Right. It's a sprawling global infrastructure. And for the most part, it remains completely invisible to the average consumer who's just standing there paying that bill.
Well, we are going to make it visible today. We're doing a deep dive into Zoetis Inc., DAX stock symbol ZTS, which is, frankly, the undisputed global heavyweight in animal health.
Yeah, they really are the giant in the room.
Definitely. So whether you track market dynamics or study industry economics, or you're just, curious about how massive companies navigate severe industry turbulence, this deep dive is going to give you the complete picture.
And to get that picture, we're pulling from two really detailed sources today. First, we have a comprehensive research report by Compasscope, which maps out the entire structural landscape of the animal health industry.
Right, the big picture stuff.
Exactly. And second, we are analyzing the raw transcript from Zoetis's most recent Q1 2026 earnings call. We're specifically looking at the commentary from CEO Kristen Peck and CFO Wetteny Joseph.
And combining these two sources creates this really fascinating contrast. I mean, the Compasscope report lays out how this corporate machine is supposed to function in theory,
Yeah, the ideal scenario.
Right. But then the earnings call shows us the real-world friction when that machine hits an economic wall. So we're going to examine exactly how this company generates its revenue, the structural advantages keeping competitors at bay, and whether their growth models can actually withstand the current pressure on the consumer wallet.
So to evaluate their market position, we first really need to divide their operations into two distinct halves.
Okay, let's unpack that. It's tempting to think of them as just a dog and cat pill company.
Right, but they are so much more than that. The first half is companion animals, so dogs, cats, and horses. And this is really where the premium pricing engine is.
The premium money.
Exactly. Zoetis absolutely dominates key therapeutic franchises here. Like in dermatology, they have these blockbuster drugs like Apoquel and Cytopoint for chronic itching and allergies.
Which every dog owner knows about.
Oh, for sure. And in parasiticides, so your flea, tick, and heartworm prevention, they market Simparica and Simparica Trio.
Okay, and the companion animal side also includes osteoarthritis, or OA, pain management, right? The Compasscope report highlights two specific drugs here, Librela for dogs and Solensia for cats.
Yes, those are massive for them right now.
And the report categorizes these as monoclonal antibodies. It repeatedly calls these biologicals a moat against competitors. But, I think we need to clarify what that actually means.
Sure, it's a really important distinction.
Because I know what a traditional pill is. But what makes a monoclonal antibody so difficult to manufacture that it actually protects the company from rivals?
Well, the distinction really comes down to the fundamental difference between chemistry and biology. Traditional pharmaceutical pills, they're synthesized chemicals.
Right.
You combine specific ingredients in a specific order, kind of like following a recipe. And because it's just a chemical recipe, competitors can easily reverse engineer it once the patent expires.
Which is how we get cheap generic drugs.
Right.
Just mixing powders in a vat.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Just mixing powders. But monoclonal antibodies, or mAbs, are entirely different. They are actual biological molecules grown inside living cells.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you have to engineer a cell line, cultivate it in these massive, highly controlled bioreactors, and then, carefully extract and purify the specific antibodies those cells produce.
That sounds wildly complicated.
It is incredibly fragile, complex, and very capital intensive. It requires highly specialized manufacturing facilities and cold chain shipping logistics.
Right, because it's a biological product.
Exactly. A competitor cannot simply reverse engineer a living process easily or cheaply. That manufacturing complexity, that is the moat.
That makes total sense. So they aren't just protecting a formula, they are protecting an entire biological infrastructure.
You hit the nail on the head.
And I guess that bridges us to the second half of their business, the livestock and production animal segment. So we're looking at vaccines, anti-infectives, and diagnostics for cattle, swine, poultry, and even aquaculture, like farmed fish.
Yeah, this segment operates as the literal backbone of the global food supply. But what really stands out in the Compasscope analysis is how Zoetis has integrated into the very early stages of the animal life cycle.
How so?
Well, through their acquisition of Neogen's animal genomics business, they are now heavily involved in livestock genetics. They actually analyze DNA to help producers breed healthier, more disease-resistant animals before they are even born.
So moving from a treatment model to a prevention-first model. Okay, so they have this massive diversified portfolio protected by complex biological manufacturing. But, I mean, if Zoetis is extracting this much value from veterinary clinics and global farms, other pharmaceutical giants are obviously going to target their market share.
Oh, without a doubt. The competitive landscape is intense. Now, Zoetis does hold a structural advantage as the largest pure-play animal health company globally.
Meaning this is their only focus.
Right. They aren't distracted by human medicine, which yields them gross margins around 72%, but they still face formidable rivals.
Like Merck Animal Health.
Exactly. Merck is backed by the vast capital of its human pharma parent company, and they frequently use really aggressive promotional pricing to capture market share, particularly in that parasiticide space we talked about.
And then you have Elanco. The Compasscope report frames them as this leveraged company currently in turnaround mode, right?
Yeah. Elanco carries significant debt from past acquisitions, like when they bought Bayer Animal Health, and they lack the premium biological pipeline that Zoetis has, which basically forces them to compete heavily on cost and volume.
Got it. And the report also mentions Boehringer Ingelheim and IDEXX.
Right. Boehringer Ingelheim is a private entity with very patient capital and a strong foothold in vaccines. And then IDEXX thoroughly dominates the clinic diagnostics and software space. Every one of those companies is trying to siphon revenue away from Zoetis.
But the dynamic seems to be shifting. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If Zoetis has the scale, the biological moat, and the deep veterinary relationships, why did the Q1 earnings call sound like they're suddenly losing ground to these competitors?
Well, the answer lies in a concept the Compasscope report identifies as the market expansion shortfall.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
To understand this, look at how the industry historically operated. Like when a company launched a new flea and tick preventative or a new allergy medication, they would flood the market with advertising.
Right, you'd see commercials everywhere.
Exactly. That marketing brought new pet owners into the clinic, so the overall market grew. Zoetis might lose a tiny fraction of their market share to the new drug, but because the total number of paying customers expanded so significantly, Zoetis's total revenue still went up.
Ah, I see. The pie was getting bigger faster than their specific slice was shrinking.
That's a perfect way to put it. But today, the macroeconomic environment has completely changed. Due to compounding inflation and rising veterinary costs, the pie has stopped growing.
People are pulling back.
Right. Clinic visits are down. So when rivals like Merck or Elanco launch new products now, they aren't bringing new customers into the clinic. They are actively discounting their prices just to steal Zoetis's existing customers.
Wow. The report specifically mentions JAK inhibitors and triple combos as competitive threats in this shrinking market. How exactly are those undercutting Zoetis's premium products?
Well, JAK inhibitor is a type of chemical compound that blocks specific neural pathways related to itching and inflammation. And because it is a synthesized chemical, not a complex biological antibody, competitors can manufacture it much more cheaply. Then they offer it at a lower price point to price-sensitive pet owners.
And the triple combos.
Triple combos refer to chewable tablets that combine flea, tick, and heartworm prevention into a single dose. Competitors are using these all-in-one chemical conveniences priced really aggressively to break Zoetis's hold on the parasiticide market.
And I imagine generics are also a problem for their older drugs.
Exactly. Generics are eroding older, off-patent Zoetis drugs like the antibiotic Convenia.
So Zoetis cannot win a race to the bottom on price without destroying their 72% gross margins. I mean, they just can't. So if they can't discount their way out of this, how does their management actually plan to regain momentum?
Well, their primary defense mechanism is aggressive innovation. I mean, they intend to invent entirely new categories of veterinary care.
New categories entirely?
Yeah. Management points to a stated pipeline of roughly 12 potential blockbusters. That represents a $7 billion incremental addressable market.
That's a massive number.
It is. They are shifting focus toward chronic diseases that we traditionally associate with human medicine, things like renal disease, oncology, and cardiology.
I see the logic there. If you can't get more volume, In flea and tick meds, you create high-margin oncology treatments for pet owners who are willing to spend heavily on extending their animal's life.
Exactly.
But there's another pillar to this strategy that really stands out to me. The shift toward long-acting biologics.
Yes, this is a huge pivot. They are systematically trying to move the market away from daily pills administered by the owner toward long-acting injections administered exclusively by the veterinarian.
Right.
They're rolling out new osteoarthritis pain injections like Lenivia and Portela in select international markets, and they're developing Cytopoint Plus for dermatology.
You know, the mechanics of that strategy are incredibly effective. I mean, if a pet owner has to hide a daily pill in a piece of cheese, they might forget a few days or just skip a month entirely to save money.
Oh, absolutely. Compliance is a huge issue with pills.
But if the dog requires a biological injection that lasts exactly 30 days, that pet owner is locked into visiting the vet clinic every single month.
Okay.
It guarantees compliance for Zoetis, and it guarantees recurring foot traffic and exam fees for the veterinarian.
Right. It creates this really powerful economic alignment between Zoetis and the veterinary clinics. They win together.
It's brilliant.
It really is. And they are also utilizing ecosystem integration to support these new therapies.
How does that look like?
Well, by placing their diagnostic machines and AI imaging software directly in the clinics, they aim to detect diseases like early-stage renal failure much sooner. And catching the disease early via their diagnostics naturally pulls through the sales of their upcoming renal therapeutics.
It is a totally closed loop. You diagnose the issue with Zoetis technology, and then you treat it with Zoetis medicine.
Exactly. That covers the companion animal side. Meanwhile, their livestock strategy leans into the macroeconomic tailwinds of rising global protein consumption.
Right, because people are eating more meat globally.
Yeah, so they're deploying vaccines in emerging markets to protect the growing supply of poultry and beef. The strategy is structurally sound.
However, projecting a $7 billion pipeline on an earnings call is very different from executing the logistics required to actually deliver it.
Oh, completely.
That brings us to the operational reality. Because we always expect clinical trial delays in pharmaceutical development, but the Compasscope report highlights an ERP and fiscal year alignment as a critical execution risk.
Yes, that stood out to me as well.
I look at that and wonder, is upgrading corporate software really a material threat to their market share, or are analysts just overstating an IT project?
No, an enterprise resource planning, or ERP, transition of this magnitude is a severe operational vulnerability.
Really?
Think of an ERP system as the central nervous system of the entire global corporation. It connects inventory, invoicing, manufacturing, shipping, everything.
Okay.
If the brain, meaning the sales team, tells the hand to ship a pallet of Apoquel, but the new nervous system drops the signal, the product never leaves the warehouse.
And in a market where competitors are actively trying to steal your customers with cheaper alternatives, an inventory blackout is catastrophic.
It's the worst case scenario.
Because if a vet clinic places an order for a Zoetis dermatology drug and the software glitches, they aren't going to wait 2 weeks for IT to fix it. They have an itchy dog in the exam room right now. They will immediately reach for a competitor's JK inhibitor.
Exactly. And once that animal is stabilized on the competitor's drug, the vet is highly unlikely to switch them back.
So a supply chain software error can literally result in the permanent loss of a patient's lifetime value.
Yes. And beyond logistics, they face significant commercial risk. If inflation persists, pet owners may simply refuse to adopt these new premium-priced chronic disease treatments.
Right, the money just isn't there.
Plus, there's product risk. Their flagship pain injection, Librela, experienced safety concerns in the media recently. That forced Zoetis to invest heavily in real-world data and veterinary education just to rebuild trust.
And we don't even have to theorize about these pressures. The Q1 2026 earnings transcript shows these exact risks materializing simultaneously.
It was a very tough quarter.
The headline numbers were a stark reality check. Organic operational revenue was flat 0% growth. Adjusted net income grew a mere 1%. For a company that is positioned as a reliable growth engine, that is a jarring halt.
The internal metrics reveal the exact origin of that friction, too. U.S. revenue declined 8%. And more critically, U.S. companion animal revenue declined 11%.
Wow.
Yeah. CEO Kristen Peck attributed this to and this is a quote, convergence of interconnected dynamics.
I noticed that phrasing. It sounds like corporate speak. What does that actually look like on the ground?
It's the compounding effect of multiple negative variables hitting at the exact same time. You have multi-year inflation on veterinary services colliding with a tapped-out, highly price-sensitive consumer base.
So pet owners began delaying routine wellness visits to save money.
Exactly. Then, severe winter storms physically depressed clinic foot traffic even further. And while the market was contracting, competitors simultaneously flooded the clinics with aggressive promotional pricing on alternative drugs.
Just a perfect storm.
Yeah.
The transcript also details a massive headwind created by distributor purchasing patterns.
Right.
The distributors serve as the middlemen between Zoetis and the individual vet clinics.
Mm-hmm.
How do they impact the Q1 numbers so severely?
It is a classic bullwhip effect. So imagine a veterinary clinic typically orders 10 boxes of a parasiticide each month. Because consumer foot traffic dipped, the clinic realizes they only need 8 boxes, so they reduce their order.
Makes sense.
Then the regional distributor sees orders dropping from 10 to 8 across hundreds of clinics. Fearing they will be left holding excess inventory in a slowing economy, the distributor panics. They cut their bulk order from Zoetis down to 4 boxes just to burn off their warehouse stock.
Oh, wow. So a really slight dip in end consumer demand translates into a massive, immediate freeze in wholesale orders hitting Zoetis' balance sheet.
Exactly. The freeze was so severe that management actually slashed their full-year revenue growth guidance down to a range of 2% to 5%.
I want to push back on the accounting here, too, because CFO Whitney Joseph spent considerable time on the call explaining a fiscal year alignment issue.
Yes, the $100 million shift.
Right. He noted a $100 million shift in international sales pulling into Q1 2026. If I'm reading the mechanics of this correctly, that accounting shift actually masked how bad the quarter truly was.
The data absolutely supports that conclusion. Historically, some of their international subsidiaries operated on a November to November billing calendar.
Which is strange to begin with.
It is. So Zoetis aligned them to the standard January to December fiscal calendar. That adjustment legally swept a final month of 2025 revenue into the first quarter of 2026.
So without that $100 million injection, global organic operational revenue wouldn't have been flat. It would have actually declined by 5%.
Yeah, the underlying picture was much softer.
So the core U.S. consumer market is contracting, the distributors are freezing orders, and an accounting adjustment is propping up the headline numbers. If the primary growth engine is stalling out, what is actually keeping their overall revenue from going deeply negative?
The diversification of their portfolio provided the necessary ballast.
On the livestock side.
Exactly. The livestock segment grew 12% organically. Strong global cattle demand and improved supply chains really drove that growth. And ironically, severe poultry disease outbreaks also created a huge surge in demand for Zoetis' preventative vaccines.
Interesting.
Also, the international segment grew 10% organically. And crucially, U.S. sales of the Librela pain injection finally stabilized. It registered flat growth after quarters of decline, which indicates their aggressive veterinary education campaign is actually taking hold.
Looking at this comprehensively, it seems they are playing a heavy defensive game in the U.S. companion animal market. They're trying to defend their premium pricing against cheaper alternatives, while the livestock division and international markets basically generate the cash flow required to weather the cycle.
Yes, they are utilizing their sheer scale to absorb a localized economic shock.
Moving forward through the rest of the year, what specific metrics from the Composcope report should we be monitoring to determine if this defensive strategy is actually holding?
Well, the foundational metric is clinic economics. The market really needs to see if foot traffic returns for routine preventative care or if pet owners continue restricting visits to severe emergencies only.
Because if the consumer doesn't walk through the clinic door, the premium therapeutics just sit in the distributor warehouses.
Exactly. We also need to observe how clinics adapt, perhaps by implementing the wellness plans and point-of-sale discounts that Zoetis is actively encouraging, to lower the barrier to entry for consumers.
What else should we be watching?
Competitive share in their core franchises. The critical question is whether Zoetis can maintain its dominance in dermatology and parasiticides.
Right.
They absolutely must defend Apoquel and Cytopoint against the cheaper JAK inhibitors and protect Simparica Trio against those generic triple combos. They might not gain new market share in a stagnant economy, but they have to prevent structural erosion of their existing base.
And we also have to watch the execution of their cost and productivity program, right? CFO Whitney Joseph announced initiatives to deliver a leveraged P&L.
Yes, which essentially means cutting operational expenses to protect profit margins while revenue growth slows.
But I really struggle to see how cutting costs in this specific environment doesn't just backfire.
How do you mean?
Well, if Merck and Elanco are flooding the zone with aggressive marketing, and Zoetis needs to intensely educate vets to rebuild trust in Librela, you cannot starve your sales force. Cutting commercial support seems like a fast track to losing even more market share.
It is a massive risk. Management is attempting to walk a very narrow tightrope here. They face immense pressure from financial markets to protect those high 72% margins.
Yeah.
However, if they under-resource their direct-to-consumer advertising or reduce their veterinary field force during a period of intense competitive discounting, they risk accelerating the very revenue declines they are trying to fix. Precision in exactly where they cut costs is paramount.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, their late 2020s pipeline, the renal and oncology biologicals, must hit their regulatory timelines. The market has already priced in that $7 billion future. Management cannot afford clinical delays while their current portfolio is under siege.
So we have mapped the architecture of this company. Zoetis possesses a formidable structural moat based on complex biological manufacturing. They have a high-margin companion animal business insulated by a highly resilient global livestock operation. And currently, they're navigating a brutal price-sensitive contraction in the U.S. veterinary market, relying on international diversification and an upcoming wave of chronic disease therapeutics to bridge the gap until consumer spending normalizes.
That's the summary. Their ultimate bet is that the proven efficacy of their premium biologicals, combined with deep-rooted clinic relationships, will simply outlast the current cycle of aggressive discounting by their rivals.
It is a massive test of their pricing power. And, stepping back from the immediate financial metrics, the Compasscope report forces us to consider a much broader macroeconomic question.
Oh.
Yeah, think about it. The explosive growth of the animal health industry over the last decade was built entirely on the humanization of pets. It's this cultural shift where we view animals as family members deserving of human-grade medical care.
Oh, completely. We treat them like our kids.
Exactly. But as companies like Zoetis push the boundaries of science, synthesizing monoclonal antibodies and developing complex oncology treatments, they are pushing the cost of veterinary care into the thousands of dollars.
Right.
The science is absolutely capable of extending the animal's life. But at what point does the sheer cost of these advanced biologics permanently outpace the reality of the average middle-class budget?
That is the million-dollar question.
Are we approaching a hard economic ceiling on what the human-animal bond can actually finance?
Because innovation is only commercially viable if the end consumer has the liquidity to actually access it.
Exactly. It is a dynamic worth monitoring the next time you are standing at the clinic counter evaluating a treatment plan. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to review the source reports to examine the data for yourself and keep questioning the mechanics behind the markets.
This content is produced by Compasscope.com. For more than 1,100 public-listed companies, find detailed company research reports, visual mind maps, earnings call analysis, and audio discussions on Compasscope.com.